Welcome to Overwhelmed to Overcomer podcast with coach, encourager, and strategist Anna McLaughlin. If you're a Christian woman who has big dreams rooted in an even bigger God, but most days those dreams feel completely out of reach, trust me, I get it. As a homeschooling mama of 4, entrepreneur, investor, and all around wearer of many hats, I am right there with you. And yet, the Lord invites us to live out our God given purpose now in the midst of the madness. So, let's explore together how we can know our calling and walk in it today with clarity, with courage, with each other. It's time for you to live the life you love and love the life you live. Let's do this thing.
Hello, friend. I'm so glad you're here. So today we're going to lean into something that was, to me, utterly mind-blowing 20 years ago. And when you hear me tell you what it is, you might be like, that's kind of ordinary. But given my history, it really shifted something in me. And I want to invite you into this space because, especially where we are in our current climate, following the assassination of Charlie Kirk, I feel like there's been this shift, and we're sitting in a moment where a lot of us are taking a look at our lives and going, what what do we do? What do we do now? What do we do with what we've been given? There's a poem by, as far as I can tell, a secular poet. I don't know anything about her. Mary Oliver is her name. And I won't read the whole poem, although it is quite lovely. We're gonna read the whole poem because then you don't have to look it up. And it's quite lovely in its ordinariness. Now, what she misses is source. And this is something so common that without Christ, we tend to focus on the created. And of course, that at its end, its terminus is ends us up in idolatry when we do not give credit for the one who created what is created, right? When we do not give credit to the creator of the created thing. And so here she even says, I don't even know what prayer is, but it's the end. I want to invite you to the end. And that is our question for today. Okay? So she says, who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean, the one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around her with enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I've been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And that's the question I invite you to consider today. What is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? I've always loved this last line of her poem, even not really remembering where I'd heard the poem, even not knowing what the poem was about. It caught me, and it's because of this. So I was raised really with a lot of dissociation. I didn't have a sense of self. I was very intense, dramatic, anxious in my younger years, and hit this point in my early 20s where I realized everybody gets their own life. And to this day, I can remember the emotion of realizing this great and generous, this lavish gift from God. You get your own life, your very own, to waste or to sow into or to build as you will. You get to choose. And granted, there's a lot that we don't get to choose. There is sovereignty. There's also free will of other people. There's the reality of the family into which we were born, the circumstances into which we were born, and the choices that came along the way. Maybe you didn't choose to move to a new house. Maybe you didn't choose for a parent to lose their job. Maybe you didn't choose to have parents who were divorced or a sibling who had certain needs. But in the midst of that, again and again and again, a million times over throughout the course of our lives, We choose how we will respond or react if we're not able to respond to what we've been given, to reckon with the choices of others, the circumstances outside of our control, and build a life. Just take a moment to sit with the gift of that one reality in and of itself, which is, wow, everybody gets their own life. She's got it right in one sense, in that we're called to really delight in the gift that we've been given. And isn't it interesting? She even talks about being blessed, but by whom? She doesn't seem to have any sense of that. It's unfortunate, but we know, blessed by God, blessed by the Father. We're meant to drink in these moments, the grasshopper, the field, the animals, the world. We're meant to drink it in, but it's always with a purpose. The Westminster Catechism says man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. If you haven't heard me say it in here, be aware there's an Amazon music playlist with the Westminster Catechism set to music. This is the only reason I know these, is because my children and I used to listen to them when they were teeny tiny. And so I can tell you, what is the chief end of man? Man's chief end is to glorify God and to enjoy him forever. That's our work. Okay? Everybody gets their own life. And when these moments of intensity, these moments of tragedy come, we can kind of start to reckon and go, have I missed the mark? And we look at Charlie Kirk, a young man, 31 years old. That took my breath away. He was born in the decade that I was pretty sure nobody should be allowed to even drive when they've been born in that decade. And here they are having children and all of that. And 31 years old, he's gone. And in large part, because of his commitment to truth. Big T truth, commitment to the gospel. And whether you agree with every policy he had or not, I don't know all of his policies. I don't know everything, single thing he said, but I do align with him in a lot. Nonetheless, he was unashamed in his proclamation of the gospel. Okay. What do I do with that? What do we do with that? And I was really wrestling and honestly feeling shame. And one thing I know is that when I'm in shame, I'm not going to hear the heart of God. When I'm beating myself up because I haven't done enough, I haven't done enough. And I share this not because, oh, we need to worry about Anna. I have people reach out to me sometimes and say, oh, are you having a hard time? No, I actually share this stuff to try to help because I know it's not just me. I know it's not just me. Someone else is sitting there feeling the same way. And so I'm going to be somewhat revelatory and say, here's where I'm at, because I know I'm not alone. How very often the Lord has us going through things similar to our brothers and sisters so we can lift one another's head. So feeling the shame, I'm like, that's not going to do anybody any good. And so I took some time to get before the Father. And he told me something that I'm now telling you, I hope encourages you today. He said, your marching orders haven't changed. The work is still the same. What are we to do with our one wild and precious life? Glorify God and enjoy him forever. What that looks like in each individual's life is to live fully surrendered to the Father, and as a result, to do what he said to do. There's a book I have not been able to get enough of lately called The True Vine by Andrew Murray. I've read some of it in here before. Each chapter, 31 chapters, is a deep dive into one segment, usually just a portion of a verse of John 15, the parable of the vine and the branches. What is our work? John 15 tells us it is to abide, and by extension, as the natural result without further effort, to bear. To be so fully rooted in Christ that we want only what he wants. To look so full on his wonderful face. We went to a church for a season where at the end they would sing, turn your eyes upon Jesus. Look full in his wonderful face, and the things of earth will grow strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. We want to be looking at him so completely with so much love and devotion that we just naturally go where he sends us. And we need to be okay with that someplace being small and ordinary. We need to be okay glorifying him by bringing others around us into that grasshopper moment that Mary Oliver talks about. We need to be okay with it being sitting on a blanket with our children and saying, look at the wonder of God. Look at what he made. Where we take her posture, but we recognize we're blessed not by some mystical something that she never goes to figure out what it is. We're blessed by the one true God, the maker of heaven and earth. And there may be days where we're like, I don't know how to pray either, just like that poem, but we figure it out. We submit ourselves to the will of God again and again and again. And step by step, Rich Mullins' song, step by step, you'll lead me and I will follow you all of my days. Right? If you haven't listened to that song, it's 20 or 30 years old now. He says, sometimes I think of Abraham, how one star that shone was lit for me. I might not be getting the lyrics completely right. One star was yours. So, what are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Abide and bear. This book, The True Vine, talks about abiding. John 15:9 says, as the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Continue ye, it's the old, that's probably King James Version that he's sharing, continue ye in my love. We speak of a man's home as his abode. Our abode, the home of our soul, is to be the love of Christ. We are to live our life there, to be at home there all the day. This is what Christ means our life to be and what he really can make it. Our continuous abiding in the vine is to be an abiding in his love. And then he talks about there are people who really do walk from this place. You possibly know that some have told of a wonderful change by which their life of continual failure and stumbling had been changed into a very blessed experience of being kept and strengthened and made exceedingly glad. If you ask them how it was that this great blessing came to them, many would tell you it was simply this, that they were led to believe that this abiding in Christ's love was meant to be a reality, and that they were made willing to give up everything for it, and then enabled to trust Christ to make it true to them. So they were made willing. Listen to this. Think of who is the actor here. In effect, God made them willing to give up everything for it. And then he enabled them to trust Christ to make it true to them. Okay? You were invited to live in his love. It says, turn away from the visible if you would, and see and possess the invisible. Take more time with Jesus, gazing on him as the heavenly vine, living in the love of the Father who wants you to live in his love. Turn away from yourself and your efforts and your faith if you would have the heart filled with him and the certainty of his love. Oh, listen to that. Turn away from yourself and your efforts and your faith if you would have the heart filled with him and the certainty of his love. Abiding means going out from everything else to occupy one place and stay there. Come away from all else, set your heart on Jesus and his love, and that love will awaken your faith and strengthen it. Occupy yourself with that love, worship it, wait for it. You may be sure it will reach out to you and by its power take you up into itself as your abode and your home. So here's what I want to say. We hit these moments in our lives, whether it's because of a personal loss or a more national or larger group loss, or there's this kind of reckoning moment or this moment of fear, or our kids say something and we're like, have I totally missed the mark? Have I totally failed? The work is always the same. The temptation is to react in fear and go, oh no, I've missed it. I'm not doing what I need to. And we can kind of start to scramble. And this is where we see the ricochet of like reaction. And then we kind of swing back to where we were before. The way to make these moments do their work well, the way to take advantage of these moments and go, okay, truly, line in the sand, never the same again, is by waiting. And instead of operating from a place of fear and scarcity, I haven't done enough, I'm not enough. Listen, nothing powerful comes from those places. When we're in that like imposter syndrome or guilt or shame or comparison or judgment, because here's where we can kind of go. This is the temptation. All right, so let's look at like Charlie Kirk's murder as an example, his assassination. Okay, so we can go to comparison. He was such an outspoken, um, uh, just like proclaimer of the gospel. I don't know why I couldn't find that word. Such an outspoken proclaimer, witness for Christ. I could never have the impact that he has had. And when we're in comparison, we are utterly powerless because we're not looking at what he has given us to do. What has the Father given you to do with your one wild and precious life? That's the only question that matters. Okay? And if we're there, then we also leave ourselves open to the temptation to go the other side, judgment. Oh, he was so bombastic, or I didn't like the way he talked to people, or I would never do it that way, or my theology is not the same as him, or here's all the places I think he got it wrong. Now we're looking at specks in his eye instead of planks in our own. We're missing the plank. And what we're doing is we're trying to justify our inaction by judging someone else's action, right? Oh no, that was wrong. I'm much better. And again, we lose all power when we're in judgment. Okay? So both comparison and judgment, the two ditches on either side. What's in the middle? Love. Recognizing the Lord gave him a job to do. And I'm going to trust. It's between him and the Father, right? It's for all of us. It's between them and the Father. I'm going to trust that he did the work that he was called to do to the best of his ability. Now let me set my gaze on mine. Let me look full on his wonderful face, that the things of earth may be strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. I'm going to fix my gaze right there. And I'm not going to look to the right or to the left. I'm not going to allow myself the indulgence of comparison or judgment. I'm going to look at the work I have to do. And I'm going to let it be what might look to others kind of little. Because, when we see that big stage and the tens and hundreds and thousands of people and all of that, we start to think, my life feels so little. Comparison, right? We're right back in comparison. And you know who I think about? I don't remember her first name. I'm going to look it up real quick.
Hey, Mama, let me ask you a question. When's the last time you gave yourself some white space? I am not talking about a trip to the bathroom alone or even the grocery store. When's the last time you had what I like to call some no one needs me time? For homeschooling entrepreneurs, time like this isn't a luxury. It's actually a key component to a healthy business, homeschool, and family life. So, if you're ready for your next respite, whether it's you by yourself, you and your spouse, or a family trip, join us at our peaceful haven, Just Like Paradise, located on gorgeous Oak Island, North Carolina. This 3-bedroom house is just a short walk to the ocean and nearby restaurants. It has a screened-in back porch with fireplace that is to die for, hot tub, and even a fire pit if you're feeling ambitious. Book through the link in the show notes, and then you have a unique discount code, podcast100, to get a $100 discount on your stay as a thank you for being one of my listeners. Get your next getaway on the calendar today.
You know who I think of? I had to go look it up. I've got it now. I think of this mother who had all of these children. Her name was Susanna Wesley, and she raised two boys who were the founders of the Methodist movement, John and Charles Wesley. So do you know who I think about when I think of the the little life and starting to kind of denigrate that? There's a couple things. First, a friend of mine in Bible study once flagged this thought. She said, think about the mother who packed the loaves and fishes in her son's lunch. Here comes this little boy with these loaves and fish that mama packed. And he probably wasn't, maybe I'm wrong. It's not in the scriptures. So for what it's worth, we're just kind of imagining right now. He probably wasn't the only one with food. Don't you think someone else had something they were snacking on? Crust of bread, a wineskin, something. But he was the one who had the guts to say, I bet the Lord could do something with this. Think about his mother, about the conversations that she had. Deuteronomy 6 talks about we're going to teach our children on the way, walking on the road, when we rise and when we sleep. She did that, we think. We can suppose. Somebody planted that in him. The Lord could do something with this. The Lord could do something with this little offering. So I love that. Think about that woman. We'll never know her until we get to glory. I'm sure she's there. And then I think about so there's this woman called, I guess, the mother of the Methodist Church. I had to go and look her up because I was like, oh, I want to talk about her. She just came to my mind as we were having this conversation. So Susanna Wesley raised 10 children, educated them at home. Shout out homeschool mamas who are listening. Okay. And she had two, John and Charles, who went on to found the Methodist Church. And I looked up just a little bit about her. So she lived to be like in her early 70s. And she devoted an hour each week to each child for private, focused conversation. So 10 hours a week, one to each child. Her husband was frequently away from home, so she started holding prayer services one evening a week for just the people in her household. And then the neighbors started coming, and then people from the town. And then she ended up having a couple hundred. This is all in just a blurb, so I'll post it in the show notes. She ended up having a couple hundred at a time. The pastor even complained because like they were coming to her prayer meeting instead of coming to the church. And so these were the seeds that resulted in the Methodist Church. So think about this woman, 10 children at home. What do I even do? How do I feed them all? How do I take care of them? Husband's out of town a lot. And she gives what she can, an hour of time to each child, and then one evening for prayer meetings. And out of that is birthed a church that is still alive today, right? You have no idea what's going to come from the work you are doing. And because God is a God of generations, yeah, wide is great. Like go ahead and endeavor to impact as wide a scope of people as you possibly can for the kingdom in this life. But don't neglect the fact that what you are doing lives on and echoes into the generations. You have no clue how long. Actually, we do know. What does the scripture say? The sins of the father are passed down to the third and fourth generation. And the blessings are passed down to the 1,000th generation. Friend, if you do nothing but love the people in the four walls of your home, you've impacted thousands. Thousands. Okay? What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? How about to start, you stop thinking it's not enough? Can we start there? I've got this conviction, for what it's worth. Everybody's got their own like purposes, values. Actually, there's a great podcast episode from last year with Andrea Johnson where she really dug into this concept of values. She does a lot with core values. And I worked through my own core values after having a conversation with her last year. My feeling is that the values that the Lord has given me are really interconnected with what it looks like to live a life of purpose. Not because I've like figured it out, right? But just because my passion is so much intertwined with everybody living out their purpose well, that I think when we really lean into these practices, that we will walk well in the work the Father has for us. So, just peeling back the curtain a little bit, these core values are at the heart of absolutely every single podcast conversation. Every time I bring on a guest, they know what the core values are that exist within this podcast. Every single conversation that I bring here, just my own thoughts and musings for you and I to reckon with together, are rooted in these pillars. Okay. And they are this: belonging, stewardship, and courage. Belonging, it's that abiding, it's that being with the heart of God, belonging to Him in a deep, inextricable way. And then belonging with ourselves in our own skin, belonging with others, open handed, vulnerable, interconnected, interdependent. Stewardship, Matthew 25. We're back there again. We're going to live there forever and ever. For us to really serve the Lord well, to take what He has given us and to invest it, that He might say, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in little, I will set you over more. Enter into the joy of your master." And then courage kind of just intersects it all, holds it all together. We need some guts in this life. It takes guts to trust the Father. It takes guts to go where He tells us to go or where we think He tells us to go. There are times, I know you too, where I've walked out in faith and the bottom dropped out from under me. I was like, I missed it somehow. He has permission to do that in our lives. Or at best, we give Him that permission, right? He's always a gentleman. He doesn't take without being given. We need some guts. We need some guts to show up and do the thing again because this life is hard. Man, this life is hard sometimes. We hold, I just like, I've had some time with a lot of precious girlfriends lately, and I just hold all these prayer requests. I'm like, Father, it's too much. Even knowing these things are happening, it's more than my heart can hold. But I don't have to hold it. We lay it back at His feet again. We say, Thy will be done. Be glorified in all of this. But still, take some guts, right? And this is what's so profound to me. Okay, so listen, this is something in Matthew 25, this is something that I reckoned with for quite some time. And I don't know that I necessarily know it all the way through, but we're going to give it a go today. Listen to this. This is so fascinating. Listen to this. Okay, if I can get to the right page. I love the sound of scripture pages turning. When the third servant, who was given 1 talent and did nothing with it, comes before the Father, he came forward saying, "Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours." But his master answered him, "You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to him who has the 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." What do we do with that? Here's what has always blown my mind about that. The master does not refute the 1 talent servant. He doesn't say, "That's not true. This is a safe place. Come on in, honey. You're okay." He doesn't coddle him. He he actually restates, "Hey, yeah, you know that I go get stuff that I didn't plant, right?" What do we do with that? And I haven't dug into commentary, but I just from a place of just like we know the goodness of God, okay? Um, the master does not restate, "I'm a hard man." What he restates is his abundance. Yeah, there's going to be enough and more than enough. There's going to be so much you can't even catch it. The harvest is plentiful, the workers are few. It's not that I'm stealing from other people. That wouldn't line up with the scriptures. It's that I'm a God who magnifies things. And everything is under my care and covering. So any growth, any fruitfulness, it's all mine. All of it. Even if you didn't see me throw the seed on the ground, it's all mine ultimately, right? What was the miss of the 1 talent servant? He did not know the heart of the master. He saw the results and he attributed cruelty. I knew you to be a hard man. What is it really? It's love. Come on in. Be part of this kingdom work. I think about often, being raised in at the time of my childhood a non-Christian home. Just how like I don't know any other way to say it than this. Just how pissed the enemy must have been that here come together two secular people, and I'm the result. And not that I'm walking the thing out like as well as I want to be, but man, I got ransomed from evil. Oh, there's this fabulous line. We're just going all kinds of places. You know, that's how we do in here. There's this beautiful line from um, it's like the 1990s Uma Thurman, Claire Danes. I forget the name of the Jean Valjean character. Um, the Les Miserables from the 90s. It's not a musical. It's much more sober. It's just precious. One of my favorite movies of all time. And at the very beginning of the movie, if you don't know the storyline, it is just this expansive redemption story set against the backdrop of the French Revolution. And at that time, if you stole, the punishments were insane. So Jean Valjean steals a loaf of bread to save his sister and her family and is put in prison for, I think, 20 years, branded as a felon. He's at risk of basically never working or being able to function in normal society again. He's taken in by a clergyman, and he goes on to steal from the clergyman, and then the police catch him. He makes up the story of, oh, he gave me these silver candlesticks. He gave me all this stuff as a gift. And the police bring Jean Valjean forward. This is it. Like he could hang for this. And the pastor says, "Oh yeah, actually he must have stolen silverware." He says, "Oh yes, absolutely. I gave those to him, but Jean Valjean, you forgot the candlesticks." Gives him the candlesticks. And then the police leave. And he looks at Jean Valjean and he says, "Jean Valjean, my brother, I've ransomed you from evil." And he goes on to say, go now and leave your life of sin and submit your life to the Lord. Jean Valjean goes on to be a man of incredibly profound impact. Mayor of a town, a man of justice, a man of compassion. He adopts a prostitute's daughter, raises her as his own. Just a precious story. We have been ransomed from evil. We've been plucked out of darkness into the kingdom of heavenly lights. We must continually revisit our understanding of the Father. so that we do not make the mistake of the one-talent servant. Because listen, we're going to get it wrong. We're going to have these crappy stories. Sorry, I didn't warn you. We're going to have these crappy stories. I just have to say it. They're crappy. Okay, we're going to have these crappy stories on the face of God. And when we do that, what happens? We will not be effective. Okay? One talent servant, he hides it away. Even if you're building some dynamic business or some amazing ministry, if you have the one talent servant's face on the Father, like if you have his face of God on God, you're going to miss it because you're not bearing much fruit. The only way, oh, we want this to be otherwise because we just want to be productive. The only way to bear much fruit is by connection to the Father. The only way. And if you want to dig into that a little bit, which I just feel like I got to live here for a while, read the book, The True Vine by Andrew Murray. 31 chapters, 3 pages apiece. There is so much richness. Our work is to abide, and only by abiding do we bear. That's the only way we bear much fruit. Okay? I think this all came up because I was talking about belonging. We got to belong. Yes, stewardship. By having the right face on God. That is how we bear. And that's the thing I think too with this Matthew 25 passage. What used to make me so uncomfortable about it was like it felt like a misunderstanding somehow. Like, oh, he just didn't understand how the master wanted things done. That's all. He was trying to be prudent. Man, aren't I telling on myself right now, right? Oh, just play it safe. It's because he didn't know the Father that he made those choices. It was for fear. He feared, and this is not a holy, reverent fear. This is a fear like, oh, he's mean, right? I don't like him. He's mean. He's not going to take care of me. We get stingy when that's what we believe about the Father. And this man was living it out to such a degree that he hid away everything the Father had given him to give to the world, to sow in and advance the kingdom. And that can be so pronounced that we aren't even saved. Like that's what this is saying at the end when he's out in the weeping and the gnashing of teeth. It's like he was in the household, but he wasn't heart bound to the Father like the others were. That's where we need to sit. That's our work every single day. To get closer and closer and closer to Jesus. And through that, we will bear. Now, what we're going to bear is his business. It's going to be fruit. Maybe it's at home. Maybe it's into the generations. You know, life for me is really quiet right now. I'm going to tell you, it has been uncomfortable. And when Charlie Kirk was killed, I'm like, I'm not doing enough. And the Lord reminded me, the marching orders haven't changed. He reminded me of the generations. Everybody gets their own life. This one wild and precious life. What are we going to do with it? Sit at his feet. Sit at his feet so long that we're like, am I going to even get anything done today? That's the work. And for someone who maybe has some family stuff to work through, has some trauma in their past, whatever it is, I'm just going to offer this because this was my story. I was like, are we ever going to finish digging out these dang foundations? I'm therapy and prayer ministry and all of these like deep works to just not be an awful human being. It took so much work just to not be a total disaster, just to be able to function in the way that I looked around. I was like, most people seem to be able to get dressed in the morning and take a shower and get their work done. Somehow I'm struggling with that. I had some stuff to work through. And it took so long and it was so frustrating for me because I wanted to go out and be fruitful. But that we have to get the right face on God first. That's our shot so that we can bear much fruit. We have to do that first. And it might take a decade or two. I mean, I hope somebody feels some relief hearing this. My heart is so tender, talk. It might. Honey, It might take a decade or two, or 3 or 4. Man, God loves 40 years, the time of completion. It's often, so with the flood, with fasting, with the flood, it was a completion of judgment, 40 years. With fasting, it's like that's when Christ was ready for his ministry, at the end of the 40 days. And we can feel like that's inordinately long, but what we fail to realize is that we are the compound effect of all of the generations that preceded us. And so, especially if you're a first generation Christian, or you're the first generation in your family where you're really reckoning with the ick, which for a lot of us we are, because the greatest generation, they just kind of like dug in and kept moving. Ain't nobody getting therapy back then, right? And then there was a lot of just like indulgence and let's just do what we feel and follow our hearts, and parents, well, what children need is happy parents, that I think was really prevalent in the 80s, and a lot of more corporate trauma as organizations stopped taking care of their people throughout their lives and it became about the bottom line. And man, I went to law school. I can tell you about what was going on in the courts that gave rise to this lack of stability and commitment on the part of companies for their employees. Okay, all about like shareholder value. Maximizing shareholder value became the sole obligation of board members. Sorry, I'm getting nerdy. I'll leave that aside. But all that's to say, there was a lot of stuff where it was all about indulgence, like what's best for each individual. And now our generation's coming up and it's like, that didn't go so well. And we're kind of working through the thing and it feels like it's taken forever. But listen, the work that you're doing is redeeming family systems that have been in place for quite some time, potentially. You might be dealing with generations past. So yeah, you may not want it to take a decade or 2 or 3 or 4, but what if you settle the thing? The Lord spoke to me in my 20s. You are the point of redemption in your family line. And since God does 2 to 3, I must speak this over you as a blessing. You are the point of redemption in your family line. Take up that mantle. I was real proud and excited. That's going to be awesome. It doesn't feel so awesome digging those things out, seeing all your junk laid out on the desk and going, oh man, how are we going to move forward from this? But now that I'm in my 40s, and I think we finally got some foundation laid, we're starting to build a little bit. Took a long time. I'm like, oh, so much of that stuff that was dug out, it's gone now. We don't live there anymore. And you know what that means? My children don't have to live there anymore. Their children, the children after them, and the children after them, 1,000 generations. Every rock, I like to think about it like we wear a backpack with rocks in it, and people from the generations prior put rocks in our pack. It was on their back before they passed the bag to us. Everybody's throwing rocks in. We're throwing our own rocks in. Every time we choose to forgive, every time we choose to lay something down, every time we choose to walk back into a room when we run away, or we are gracious in love when we want to rake someone over the coals, take a rock out. That's one less battle our kids have to fight from scratch. They're going to have their own battles. They're going to have their own things. But my prayer is that they stand on our shoulders, that there's stuff they don't have to reckon with. It's not even a thought in their minds, right? It's okay if it takes a decade or 2 or 3. What is that compared to eternity? All right. So we talked about belonging. We talked about stewardship. Last is courage. Just takes some guts sometimes. I'm going to read this. We've read it here before. I'm reading it again. Can never get enough of it. I have on my forearm, dare greatly. Actually, someone prayed for me the other day and they were like, oh, you've got that reminder on your arm, love greatly, because the way the D and the A are written, it looks a little bit like a cursive L and an O. I'm never going to forget that. Dare greatly, love greatly. It's the same thing. Listen, here's the deal. It's not the critic who counts. Not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again. Because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly. That's Teddy Roosevelt's speech, April 23rd, 1910. Brene Brown has this to say about daring greatly. Daring greatly is not about winning or losing. It's about courage. In a world where scarcity and shame dominate and feeling afraid has become second nature, vulnerability is subversive, uncomfortable. It's even a little dangerous at times. And without question, putting ourselves out there means there's a far greater risk of feeling hurt. But as I look back on my own life and what daring greatly has meant to me, I can honestly say that nothing is as uncomfortable, dangerous, and hurtful as believing that I'm standing on the outside of my life looking in and wondering what it would be like if I had the courage to show up and let myself be seen. I saw that I have this quote printed off. Brene Brown has some printables, or at least she did back in the day. And I printed out that Dare Greatly quote, and I was like, oh, she wrote something at the bottom. We're going to read that. How perfect and how full circle of the Lord. Nothing's as hurtful, uncomfortable, dangerous, and hurtful as believing that I'm standing on the outside of my life looking in. And here we started. Everyone gets their own life. Everyone gets their own life. You get your own life. What are you going to do with it? Live it. Live it, friend, all the way through. Make mistakes, fall on your face. Invest the 10 talents, looking full on the wonderful face of the Father, trusting that He has your back, that none of this is wasted, trusting that He has your back, that you're going to make it through this, that He's carving the path because you're fully abiding in Him, living and moving and having your being in His love, using what He's given you to advance His kingdom, and showing up brave and seen in your life. So that's the invitation, friend. What are you going to do with your one wild and precious life? Go and live it. Send me a message. Let me know how you're doing that today. Okay? Until next time, as always, you know what I'm going to say. You've got this. Because He's got you.
Friend, thank you so much for listening to this most recent episode of Overwhelmed to Overcomer. So listen, the whole idea behind this mission is that when we endeavor to be brave with our lives, we need to do it together. Belonging is key. So if you resonated with the message from this episode, share it with a friend. Do it together. Thank you again, and never forget, you've got this because He's got you.